secret is because Laos and Cambodia at that time were neutral countries, and our government announced that our troops would not be there. Unfortunately, the North Vietnamese army was there in record numbers. They was just swarming the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The operation of CCC was against the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Their area of operation was southern Laos and northern Cambodia, where we were not supposed to be. The trail was swarming with NVA. They had regimental headquarters, bivouac areas, truck parks, hospitals, all up and down the trail. There were way stations every 20, 30 miles. Each way station had 6 trucks, infantry support, anti-aircraft guns, maintenance and logistics, and they would shuttle supplies, men, and equipment between those way stops all the way down. The teams that were selected to run operations against these facilities were composed of 2 to 3 Americans and 5 or 6 indigenous mercenaries. In the case of CCC Kontum, they were Montagnard tribesmen for the most part. There was also what was called a hatchet force, which was a reaction force. And that consisted of American squad leaders and platoon leaders, and the troops were Montagnards. The teams conducted their operations in sterile fatigues. There were no markings. There was no identification. There were no dog tags. There was nothing to associate our people with the United States government. And this was so that our government could maintain deniability. Missions in Cambodia, you didn't even carry American weapons. You carried Swedish Ks, AKs, Sten guns, whatever. The operations that took place by CCC teams in Laos and Cambodia were pretty much on their own. They were out of range of artillery. There was no pre-planned artillery fire on potential targets. They were just nowhere around. There were no American units around if you ran into trouble and needed help. There was no communications in most areas. You had to rely on a Covey or a SPAF, a spotter plane flying overhead a couple times a day to make contact. Anyway, I just thought I would give you a little idea of CCC, what Fred Zabitosky's average work day was like. When he went to work on missions in Kontum, you could perhaps be put into a target area and conduct just general intelligence gathering, finding out what's there, truck parks, troop concentrations, whatever. There's also specific site intelligence to try and confirm that a bivouac area was there, or a truck park, or whatever. When our teams encountered these targets, they called in airstrikes. They backed off and called in A-1Es or F-4 Phantom jets, or on some occasions, B-52 Arclight missions. Another mission that might have been pulled was a BDA, a bomb damage assessment, to see what kind of casualties were inflicted. And I can tell you, we inflicted a lot of casualties. Other missions that could be run by Fred and his team, our Team AIM, were raids and ambushes on targets of opportunity. Another mission was prisoner snatch. And that was grabbing a North Vietnamese soldier, capturing him, bringing him back to Saigon for interrogation. That was always a secondary mission on any CCC mission. Another mission we might pull would be planting anti-vehicular mines in the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Also, another one would be if a recon team found NVA bivouac areas connected by commo wire, another team would come in and install wiretaps on that commo wire. They'd also install electronic sensors. And one mission we had was collecting soil samples. And to this day, I have no idea why we were collecting soil samples, but it must have been for a good reason. One of the more fun, I shouldn't say fun, one of the more interesting missions that we had was codenamed Elder's Son. And what that was planting doctored ammunition on NVA ammo caches, the bivouac areas, and the trails. And what that was AK-47 rounds and mortar rounds. When the bad guy picked up his rifle and fired, instead of the round going down range, the weapon would blow up in his face, take his head off, and kill the bad guy. When a mortar round was dropped down the tube, on impact, it would blow up and kill the mortar team. Very, very successful operations, to the point where some of you out there might remember Armed Forces Vietnam warning soldiers, or American soldiers, not to fire captured AK-47s. Another operation, codenamed Soap Chips, was again those same areas, caches, roadside bivouac areas, distributing phony documents. And they were forged, fake documents that would be perhaps receipts from the South Vietnamese intelligence to a North Vietnamese colonel for his help on different issues. Or it might be to a political cadre leader with bank accounts in the South Vietnamese government. Or it might be a letter from the Chinese military apologizing for the faulty rounds that were exploding in their weapons. The point was to try and get key leaders executed. One mission that I didn't particularly care for too much was called Bright Light. And that was when one of our recon teams was always on duty 7 days at a time, 24 hours a day, at Dock Toe. And that was the launch area for CCC. And the team would have all its gear ready at the base of the launch tower, ready to go. And the reason they were there was in case one of the teams in the field got hit, had wounded, and couldn't move, the Bright Light team would jump on the choppers, fly out to that location, and rappel in on top of them to reinforce that unit, and usually under fire. The same thing with aircraft that went down. The Bright Light team would jump on those helicopters, run out to that location, rappel in, and try to save those helicopter crews. Another mission that was conducted was once a year, a large mission called the SLAM, and that was done by the Hatchet Force Company, and usually, like I said, was a once a year thing. The year I was there, the SLAM was the very first covert mission to block the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and that mission was successful, blocked it for 7 days. The mission the following year was called Operation Tailwind, and you might recall that a sergeant, or at the time Sergeant Gary Mike Rose, just 5 days ago, was awarded the Medal of Honor by President Trump. He was from Command and Control Central. His uncommon valor was actually quite common in the CCC, and I'll explain that in a minute. Anyway, the missions were extremely deadly. Every landing zone was watched. We found out after the war that there was a mole in SOG headquarters, and all our missions were compromised. Plus, the NVA had specially trained anti-SOG killer teams. That was a specific unit with bloodhound-type dogs to track our teams. They would get on their tail and have a large unit to the right, one to the left. The purpose was to try and turn the team into one of the flanking units, or to eventually engulf them and overrun them. It was, I can't tell you how high your adrenaline level can get until you're chased by dogs. Anyway, it was deadly business. In SOG, which included our CNN Northern Unit and CCS, our Southern Unit, we had 14 teams that were overrun and destroyed. We had 10 teams that were inserted and never heard from again. We had many casualties also. As far as uncommon valor, let me talk about that a little bit. George Sisler was from CCC, Command and Control Central. He was awarded the Medal of Honor. John Keddenberg was from CCC FOB 2. He was awarded the Medal of Honor. My recon company first sergeant at that time, Robert Howard, was put in for the Medal of Honor 3 times. Those who served with him would tell you that he deserved every one of them, but he did get one award of the Medal of Honor. I also served with Franklin Miller, who was awarded the Medal of Honor. Of course, Fred Zabitosky was awarded the Medal of Honor, and most recently, 47 years later, but deserved nonetheless, Gary Rose. The point is, there were a little over 400 of us that ran cross-border operations. Of those 400, there were six Medal of Honor recipients. That's just unheard of in the history of the United States military. You know, a lot of Americans today, they consider athletes heroes. They work for sports teams that they like. When they go to work, they practice playing a game. Then they play a game. And they get millions of dollars a year for that. You know what? They're not heroes. Fred Zabitosky was a hero. When Fred went to work, I just described you his daily work routine on those missions. Fred maybe made $6,000, $7,000 a year, but he did work for the best team in the United States, the best team in the world, United States Army Special Forces. I'd like to thank the mayor and council for your efforts to put this dedication together. You did an absolutely terrific job. On behalf of the people of Ewing Township, their elected officials speak for them and decided to have this event.